Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my sweater weather mug again. Today's video is going to be the best audiobooks I have listened to, and this will probably be a part one situation because these are just the ones that I've continually thought of as like really great audiobooks and like really stood out to me. But obviously this will continue to expand as I continue to listen to new audiobooks. And I love being able to recommend them to people because audiobooks is a big way that I consume books. I do physically read quite a bit, but I would say majority of my reading is audiobooks. So I'm a big advocate for them. I love them. I love being able to listen to the different characterizations and the voices and the voice acting, especially if it's a full cast of characters. And I think there's just so many things that you can do with audiobooks that make it so immersive. And so we're going to talk about a handful today that have really stood out to me. I will continue to add to this in the future. So the first one I would recommend is actually a trilogy, and that is The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. Regardless of how you feel about the Shadowhunter universe, I would say that most people agree that The Infernal Devices is the best series of the Shadowhunter universe. And I agree with this. I absolutely loved them. I was very surprised because the Mortal Instruments became really tedious for me. I wanted to know what happened, but I really wasn't intrigued. There were like a couple of books that stood out to me, and then the rest of them I thought were just kind of which I feel like is an unpopular opinion, maybe not so much anymore. So I didn't have high hopes, even though I had heard people talk about the Infernal Devices, and so I didn't have a lot of high hopes going into it that I would really enjoy it. I ended up loving them. And I also listened to them. And listening to them was such a pleasant way to experience these books because of the accents, and Will Herondale's wit just came across hilarious. I remember listening to this and hearing the banter in between all of the different characters and laughing out loud, which is 100% a telltale sign for me that I love the audiobook and the audiobook is really good, is if it makes me laugh out loud. Because I feel like that's hard to make me do when I'm reading or listening. So when I actually like laugh at a joke or some banter or some sarcasm between characters, it's top notch. And the Infernal Devices did that. It's deep, it's heavy. There's a lot of things that are, heart-wrenching in that series, but it's also hilarious. So many good one-liners, so many good jokes. I thought that series was so well done with the just witty banter. Oh, I loved it. So I would highly recommend you listen to those audiobooks if you haven't. Another one that I would recommend is the Stalking Jack the Ripper series by Carrie Maniscalco. I loved this series as a whole. It's very, it's not really fantasy, but it's more so forensics. And she studies cadavers and has used her studies to try to help solve murders with the Stalking Jack the Ripper killings and other mysteries along the way. Again, the narrator has a more English accent, which makes it feel so much more immersive to me, especially when you're in an English setting like The Infernal Devices. I think listening to the audiobook really makes Thomas Cresswell's banter and jokes and comments really come alive, and you feel a lot more of his personality when you're listening to the audiobook than when you're reading it, I think. Because obviously if you're reading it, you're gonna get his personality, you're gonna get his witty banter and all of that, you're reading it. But the voice acting for this narrator with Thomas Cresswell, I felt like really made it for me. Again, made me laugh out loud a few times during the series. I really enjoyed the different moments of the voice acting with Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell and the other characters as well. And I just feel like the narrator did such a good job with all of the banter, but also the serious moments of when you're going into the forensic setting. I just threw my clipboard across the room. And when there's really tense moments and moments when you're describing something really gruesome, I just really enjoyed these audiobooks and thought they were very well done. The next one would be the Lord of the Rings series, specifically narrated by Andy Serkis. If you don't know who Andy Serkis is, if you've ever watched the Lord of the Rings movies, Andy Serkis is the one who plays Gollum. He does the voice acting and the crouching and stuff for Gollum. And I knew he was narrating it, and so I thought that would be a great idea for Gollum itself, because you really get to hear his voice with Gollum and Smeagol and the dialogue between them. You really get to hear that come out, and Andy Serkis voice acting this out. But he's also just an amazing narrator, and he needs to narrate everything. So many things. He would be fantastic as a audiobook narrator and voice actor. He's amazing. He just has this way where his narrating voice, you know, just like reading, just like getting you through the story, not doing the voice acting as much, is amazing. His voice is so rich and beautiful. It's just so pleasant to listen to. And then he does voices so well. So he's able to like mimic the movie characters of Lord of the Rings. He's able to mimic Gandalf and like Legolas and Gimli and the Hobbits and Treebeard and all of these different characters. He's able to voice act them so well. And obviously it is taken inspiration from the movies. So some people may not like that. Some people may. I really enjoy it. He also does the Uruk-hai and the orc voices so well, and it's cool because you can still differentiate who he is. So you can tell when he's doing an orc voice versus an Uruk-hai voice, and it's just so good because I don't have to guess who's talking in these books. I know exactly who he's trying to be when he does the voices because he changes them up and is consistent, and he just does it so well, and I could rave about this all day. But that man should narrate freaking everything. And I liked The Fellowship of the Ring. I liked it a lot. I liked it more than Two Towers book-wise, but he did not narrate Fellowship of the Ring, or at least the one I listened to, and I enjoyed his narration of The Two Towers way more. Oh, it was so good, and I can't wait to listen to The Return of the King because he's narrating it, and it's gonna be fantastic. So yes, if you have never listened to Andy Serkis's narrating of Lord of the Rings, please do it. Why aren't you doing it? Do it right now. Another one that I greatly enjoyed, even though this was years ago, is Dealing with Dragons by Patricia C. Reed. I've only listened to the first one, but I do want to listen to the rest of the series, and I believe I did get book 2 on Audible. But this is a, like, I don't know, middle grade YA children's book, something. And it's narrated by a full cast of characters, which is automatically amazing in and of itself. But this was such a cute and adorable, fun story. Basically, you're following Princess Cimarine as she is trying not to be married off to a prince, and so she decides she's going to take fate into her own hands, and she's going to go find herself a dragon, and then she's going to stay with the dragon so she can't be married off. So it's kind of like, you know, when a princess is kidnapped by a dragon and they can't rescue her, it's like she's doing that, but she's putting herself in that position because that's what she wants. She doesn't want to be rescued. And it's just a really adorable story. And then there's like a lot of like politics that ends up happening with these dragons and the wizards. And it was just so cute. It really like took me by surprise how much I enjoyed it. And I remember this was one of my first experiences with a full cast of characters narrating an audiobook, and it blew me out of the water. I thought it was so cool with the different dragon voices and the different voices for Cimarine and the prince and her friend, and it was just a lot of fun. And I just remember really loving it. So if fun kind of stories like that intrigue you at all, I would recommend this, especially if you're just on a road trip or bored and you just want to be able to go through a series really quickly. I think they're like 4 or 5 hours each. They're a lot of fun, at least the first one was, and I am very anxious to get to the rest of the series and really need to get to it soon. So I would also recommend that. Another one I would recommend, because I think the audiobook was done so well, is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. The reason I recommend this audiobook is because the way the book is written is basically Pip is trying to solve a case that has been considered closed, so like a cold case, where it was deemed a murder-suicide, but then she doesn't believe that that's actually what happened, and so she's trying to like reopen this case and dig up stuff about it for her senior project. And to do so, she's like going and interviewing people and, you know, calling people on the phone, meeting them in person and tape recording their conversations, stuff like that. And the cool thing about this audiobook is while she's doing that, you'll hear her go, okay, I'm gonna call this person. And then you'll hear like the sound change and you'll hear like the phone ringing. And then you'll hear her talking on the phone in like a distorted voice kind of thing because she's on the phone and it's like you're listening to it. And she'll do the tape recorder thing and you'll hear like a click, like the tape recorder's going, and you'll hear like the recording noise and you'll hear the background noise and you'll hear the recorder going. And it was just so immersive with all of the sound effects and all of the ways that they distorted the people's voices to make you think that it's recording or that it's a phone call. I thought that was done and produced like so well. And I really enjoyed it. It made my enjoyment of that book, I already really loved it, but it made my enjoyment of that book like skyrocket because it was so cool. And I just love that those little details like that could just really amplify the book. So if you've been thinking about reading those books, or you already have, but you've been interested in the audiobooks, pick up the audiobook I don't think you'll regret it. If that story sounds interesting to you, listen to it. It's so good. Another one that I would like to talk about that is probably a little bit controversial at this point is the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. The narrator for this is fantastic and again would make me laugh out loud, and I'm not going to stay on this too long, but listening to Harry Potter was so enjoyable for me. I went through them so quickly. It was so much fun. I wasn't bored at all. I know some people while reading it, because the books just get so thick, they had a little bit of trouble getting through certain books like the 5th book for various reasons, but listening to it was so enjoyable. I wasn't bored at all. I thought some parts would be slow. They weren't. I actually really loved the 5th book because of so much of McGonagall's sass. McGonagall is like the best part of the series for me, and listening to her sass in the audiobook is fan-freaking-tastic. Again, laughed out loud, loved it. So if you've never consumed Harry Potter in audiobook form, I would recommend you do so. Another one that I just thought of sitting here would be the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. If you haven't listened to those, do it. Oh, the narrator is also so fantastic with being able to capture Murderbot's spirit and just socially anxious, clever self, that it was so funny to hear the inflections on like being horrified that a person wanted to talk to them, and it was just so funny. So you should absolutely listen to the Murderbot Diaries because it will make you laugh out loud. It made my husband laugh out loud too, and he doesn't really do that with audiobooks very much either. It is so funny. So please listen to Murderbot Diaries. Also, just listen to Murderbot Diaries anyway. Even if you read the 1st book and you decided you hated it, don't do that. Listen to it. I love that series, and I can't believe some people don't like it. I can't believe it. So that one too, listen to it. It's great. Those are all the audiobooks that come to mind at the moment of the best audiobooks I have listened to. I'm sure this is going to be part 1 of a series, and I will continue to compile others into a list to share with you at a later date. But as for now, those are the ones that I would recommend and that have been the best ones that I've listened to. Please comment down below and let me know your favorite audiobook so that maybe I can check it out. But as for now, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.